Inspired by 20th century Spanish folklore and a lot of Bioshock, Crisol, Theatre of Idols is the debut game of Vermilla Studios. This first-person survival horror pays homage to old-school gaming while also bringing something new to the table. It is set in the idol-infested town of Tormentosa. You play as Gabriel, a loyal servant of his god, the sun. He has sent you here to seal away an evil being that is attempting to break free. To assist you with this tremendous task, he blesses you with special abilities. Any weapon you touch will be transformed into a weapon of the sun. This is the only way you can destroy the lifeless monsters plaguing Tormentosa. The catch is that these blessed guns use your own blood to reload. Luckily, he also grants you the power to absorb the blood of others. Playing Crisol feels like you're playing a game right out of the PS3 era, and I don't mean that it feels old in a bad way, it feels nostalgic. It takes you back to a time when games were simpler. It's no doubt that Crisol takes heavy inspiration from Bioshock 1. From the moment you start, you can feel and see its influence all around you. From the way your character moves, the constant radio check-ins, the setting, the storyline, the syringes, even this poster is a Bioshock reference. It makes its inspiration incredibly clear, and that isn't a bad thing. This utilizes some of the best parts of what Bioshock had to offer, and it feels good. There are some technical issues with the version I played. Nothing too bad, but I will come back to those later. There is one non-technical issue that needs to be mentioned first and foremost. Usually, if I do talk about the audio in a review, I will push it back towards the end of the video because it's typically second to the gameplay itself. But in this case, I think it's too important to leave for last. Crisol has some really solid audio design and visuals which create the perfect setting. This is completely ruined by some of the worst voiceover I have experienced.
You need blood. Look at that beast. Reclaim it.
I was getting really upset because the dark and dreary atmosphere was constantly interrupted by thick American accents that didn't fit in. More than that, it also felt imbalanced against the rest of the audioscape. I kept trying to put my finger on what was wrong with it. It just sounded like a bad dub. That's when it hit me. Vermilla is a Spanish studio, so I decided to give the Spanish voiceover a try, and suddenly the whole experience clicked into place.
Vamos, hermano, no pierdas la fe. Ahora que el elegido está aquí, nuestra suerte está cambiando.
Spanish is the native language for this game, and playing it in English is a massive downgrade. The original voice actors have done a brilliant job in keeping the immersion and holding attention. If you are going to give this a try, I highly suggest playing it with Spanish audio and using English subtitles. I wouldn't be able to recommend it any other way, and I do recommend it. The gameplay loop is pretty basic. You explore linear levels that loop back to a central shop where they started. Each level has a variety of resources and enemy encounters along the way. They also always end with a puzzle, some of which can be a little challenging. At the shop, you can use your currencies to upgrade your weapons or buy new skills. Nothing radical, which was a nice surprise compared to how crazy some modern game upgrades can get. This simplicity helped to really hit that nostalgic feel. Next, I want to talk about the impact that Crisol's blood bullets have on the gameplay. This was one of the biggest reasons I wanted to try this game, so I really had high hopes for it. To reload your guns, you need to sacrifice a portion of your current health. This design creates quite a cool trade-off, where fighting enemies will always cost you some health, even if none of them are able to land a hit on you. I especially like that different bullets cost different amounts of health. This should cause you to weigh up which guns you want to reload based on what situation you're in. Sadly, that aspect is a bit of a miss, because in all situations you can just use your pistol and you'll be fine. Maybe this would have been different on the hard difficulty, but I played on normal because that was the suggested experience. Speaking of the guns, they felt a little underdeveloped. They weren't terrible, but they don't give you that responsive feedback you want when you fire them. The guns weren't able to transform the feeling of just clicking a mouse into something more in the same way that a good shooter does. Regardless, I did rotate between all of the weapons. It wasn't because I needed to, it just felt cool to mix it up. And I liked seeing the different reload animations. It's a large part of what makes the game unique, so I wanted to make use of all of them regularly. All in all, the guns were okay, and that's all they needed to be, at least for the first half of the game. Your main resource in this game is your blood. It serves as both your health and your ammo. To restore your blood, you need to absorb living things or use a syringe. Trying to keep your health and ammo supply balanced is vital. At the start of the game, this is very apparent. There isn't a lot of blood around, so it really plays into that survival horror feeling of not having a lot of resources at your disposal. You are pressured into playing strategically because missing your shots or taking unnecessary hits eats into your already limited blood supply. To me, this may have been the best part of the game, slowly crawling around the city streets in fear that something may jump out at any moment. I mentioned that phase of the game specifically because Crisol does something very interesting. It's a 3-chapter game that begins as a survival horror but ends as an action game. From the second to the third chapter, there is a gradual yet noticeable transition. There are much fewer jump scares and many more enemies. The amount of resources lying around is also massively increased, so much so that you don't feel like you're just barely hanging on anymore. At that point, you have a good arsenal of weapons and a much larger stock of blood. This allows you to deal with the increasing amount of enemies being thrown at you. It is during this time when the survival horror aspect recedes and the action becomes a much larger focus. I like this transition. As you get stronger and adapt to fighting these strange possessed dolls, there's less to fear. It felt like it made sense for there to be a bigger focus on combat rather than survival. My only criticism of this genre shift is that the controls aren't suited for it. There's a bit of jankiness in the gameplay feel. The guns don't feel very responsive, and fighting enemies as a whole isn't mechanically deep enough to make it interesting. During the first half of the game, this isn't an issue because the pacing is much slower and the focus is atmospheric. But once the combat begins to take center stage, the unpolished gunplay starts to feel more noticeable. It's not a huge deal, but it's something that I think is worth noting. If the controls were smoother, the guns felt better, and the combat was more dynamic, then I would feel much more inclined to recommend this to a wider audience. Similar to the other elements of the game, the way the story is presented is also influenced by Bioshock. It's able to build up the world around you without over-explaining everything. I think the way in which Crisol presents its story is actually better than its inspiration. Both games rely on unknown characters chatting with you via radio and guiding you through the world, but Crisol has some new tricks up its sleeve. At the start of the game, the sun blesses you with the power to absorb the blood of other living creatures. When you do this, you also experience some of their memories. These memories play out in the form of a short cutscene that have their own distinct art style. I think that this is an awesome design because it makes a clear separation between the memories and reality. Absorbing specific characters at the end of each chapter unfolds more of the island's mysteries. In addition to that, there are also these ghosts that you will often run into. After they appear, they relive key events from their lives. This was a really cool way to bring some life into this deserted town. Instead of having someone tell you everything, you are able to piece together bits of the town's history through these fragments in time. I like it because it adds to the story and the world, but you can also just walk right past them if you aren't bothered. They are thematic, purposeful, and optional, which to me is the best combination when it comes to additional world building. The ghosts are used more for the background and setting, while the end of chapter memories carry the main storyline forward. These memories are quite far apart though, so it can leave the main story feeling a little dry between chapters. I wouldn't recommend anyone to play this for the story alone, but I thought that it had some good twists and turns along the way. It sits as a good accompaniment to a short and fun throwback. There are some technical issues with the version I played, which was the initial Steam release. I had some light FPS stuttering across the whole game. I lowered my graphics to see if it was my PC, but that wasn't able to solve it. Some areas later on also have some really big FPS dips when there are too many enemies on the screen. I tried with PC controls and a controller, and I must say that I couldn't stand using the controller. You can't turn off the aim acceleration for both inputs, but at the lowest setting, it's far less noticeable on a mouse compared to a controller. It almost seemed to continue drifting as it decelerated, even after taking your thumb off the stick. To me personally, these weren't game ruining, but it might be worth waiting for a patch if these things bother you. The three main selling points of Crisol are its approach to ammo, its story, and its dedication to old school games. This blood-based bullet economy feels very impactful in the opening hours, but is irrelevant towards the tail end of the game. Its story is interesting, but it takes long pauses between its beats. Its old-school approach to design feels faithful and nostalgic. As a whole, I think that Crisol is a good game, but it'll only appeal to a niche audience. If you want a modern game, this is not for you. But if you want to scratch that nostalgic itch and don't mind a couple of rough edges, then Crisol might just be the perfect fit for you. Hey, if you made it this far in the video, let me know how you felt about it by either giving it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And if you want more content like this, be sure to subscribe, as it really supports the channel. Thanks for watching.